The majority is never going to rule out more government, ever, because they're getting a paycheck. So it kind of puts us in a pickle, doesn't it, under a majority rule system. And more, of course, is going that direction. I predict within 3 years, possibly 5, we'll be at 90% GMP for government. The private sector will be almost obliterated. Which means that, we're either working for the government or we're not working. Or we're that small little sector of innovative, entrepreneurial, small business people who are the edge and the leading edge and continue to be the leading edge of economic sovereignty, but also innovation, new jobs, technologies, and all those different things. So if you're going to do anything with your energy, then focus on starting a business and being entrepreneurial. Step into the green revolution, step into renewable energy technology, step into industries which are in the growth. And green and renewable technologies are in the growth sector. Green jobs. So I mentioned a little bit earlier about the dilemma that we're in about polarizing each other and dividing and conquering each other. So part of what we have to do with our mental environment is to depolarize the ideologies and all the issues which we're getting bombarded with every day, and look for the common ground. And remember, what is the common ground? Well, if it's our grain of salt, it's sovereignty. The common ground is that though I'm a sovereign being, then so are you. Which means I have to grant you the rights and the authority over your life to make your decisions the way I would ask you to grant the rights and authority for me over my life to make my decisions. So instead of me trying to tell you how to live your life, I should just respect you and I can assist you, but I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. Imagine that, if people were respectful. Imagine if we respected and tolerated each other and our differences, and we learned from our differences. Because how else are we going to grow unless we learn from our differences? How are you ever going to make a new friend if you don't talk to a stranger? So we tend to be very insular human beings. We stick in very small little groups of people who think and act like us. It's a pretty lonely place, actually. Sometimes it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one I can tolerate or live with anymore. Nobody else can see it my way. Nobody else will ever see it your way or totally your way. So to let other people in, you're going to have to open up and listen a little bit more to what other people are saying beneath the subtext of the words that they're using. And to not only tolerate them, but to respect them, and even to be open to listen to their point of view. Because if you come right down to it, the folks on the streets now in the Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party movement, even though they seem to be polarized, they polarize themselves. They actually have way more in common if you looked at it. Because who's their common complaint? The big government, the big brother, big sister, the whole ruling oligarchy, because no one's represented there, no matter what political view you take down here on the very grassroots level. So we have to depolarize our minds, our mental environment. There's a great quote by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time. The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and not explode or freak out or have to annihilate one thing and say, well, this is my position. Because the truth, and if you love the truth is the tension between those opposing points of view. It isn't this side or that side. It's the tension, it's what's in between. Because the truth is much bigger than any position that you could take. It just is. And the truth is much stranger than any fiction you could ever write, if you're open to it. And that's true power. True intellectual and mental power is that ability to hold that tension. And somehow I've managed to do that pretty well, because I've talked to groups across the political spectrum, and everybody seems to get it without having to slip into, well, you're this or you're that, or put me in a box somewhere. You can find a box for me if you have one, and put me in there if you want. But then again, you won't really get the full value of what the transmission is here. The transmission is that the truth will set you free. David Icke said it. He wrote a whole book about it. I shared stages with David Icke and Ed Griffin and all those others at these major international conferences. So we have to debunk a lot of the mythology and a lot of the belief structures that are operating within our mind. The truth is neither left nor right. It's just somewhere in the tension of the middle there. And that's the road to walk, the road less traveled, that road there, because that's the road of power. And I say that's what we the people need to be riding right now, is to find our own source of power and ride that wave on in through 2012 and beyond. I know there's a lot of mystery around 2012, and we won't talk much about it, except it seems to somehow be fitting into the equation here of an old system or an old calendar coming to completion. Today, officially, is the end of the Mayan calendar, according to the ninth wave of the Mayan calendar. Sure. You're following that.
Count them out.
That's not the end of the world. That's not the same thing. We're not talking about the end of the world. We're just talking about a pendulum that went all the way in one direction and is now beginning the slow 56,000-year cycle going in the other direction, of which those of you lucky enough to live that long will be able to be around to watch those cycles move. But in Hindu philosophy, those are the Kali Yuga cycles, those long cycles of time. You know, we tend to be more concerned about the next 30 days and just paying the bills than we are about the long cycles in time. But you are part of the long cycle of time. Call it whatever you will. Growth, evolution, whatever you want to call it. Change, transformation. We're all a part of that because we're all alive today on the planet. We all have some role to play in that. So some of the solutions, besides inhabiting sovereignty as your grain of salt, the unifying principle that would go across the political spectrum and unify us and empower us. Besides that, and to learning once again how to govern ourselves, we have to examine the monetary system and actually establish one. As I said earlier, we don't have a government. We don't have a judicial system. Nothing you think is anymore. We don't have a money system either. We haven't had a money system for a very, very long time. We go through the motions. We're pretending to have a money system. We move our little paper notes around and such. But we don't really have a monetary system or a sound monetary system. And so without that, it's pretty hard to win the game and become economically sovereign if we don't have a monetary system that we can count on. I think most of you in the room know by now that the definition of money constitutionally was gold and silver. It was by weights and measures. The constitutional definition of money. Because it was a stable store of value. That's why. You can buy the same amount of tangible goods with 1 ounce of silver today as you could in ancient Greece or ancient Rome. The value is stable. Its buying power is stable. That's why the Founding Fathers insisted on it. And they insisted on not having a national bank for the very reasons that we are now experiencing. They also advised us to not use paper money substitutes, which we are now using, not backed by anything. What is a Federal Reserve note actually defined as legally? A corporation note of undetermined value. A corporation note issued by a private corporation, the Federal Reserve, which is a joint stock trust created by the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, a unique legal structure, which all the shareholders happen to be all the central banks of the world. And they are in control of the economic system because they get to issue these corporation notes of undetermined value out of thin air. You and I got to work for them. Why do we have to work? We have to work really hard. Pay that mortgage off. I'm going to get my house. I'm going to live the American dream. There is no American dream. It's vaporized. We have to get current. We got to dream a new dream. I've got to dream a new vision for America, because the old one ain't cutting it. It's gone, dead. If we don't re-inhabit it, it's gone forever. It's up to us. We can't do it alone. None of us can do it alone.